Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our Saturday Anything Goes series. I'm so happy to be back doing them. Last week was a whirlwind. We were in Connecticut, had 3 birthdays, 1 bridal luncheon, and a mini family reunion. So I didn't get any Facebook Lives done while we were gone. Very happy to be back. I wanted to do something kind of special. I've got a lot of birthdays and anniversaries coming up for female friends. And, we always have these little bits that we hang on to that were given by other people. Might be a special little scarf or some mini cards or a trinket or two. And I always end up just sticking them in a drawer where I can't see them. So I came across this idea when I was perusing YouTube, and it is a keepsake memory box. Very, very pretty. You open it up, and it has ample room inside to put all sorts of little goodies. You could even store some smaller cards as a gift set in here. The standard 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 won't quite fit inside the box. But if you shaved them down a little bit, made them just a little bit smaller, they certainly would. I've used our Tea Time DSP on this one, and I loved it popped up against the white. Just makes it look so clean and so crisp. But for today's, I wanted to go in a little bit different direction. You know how you get the packs of DSP and you have your favorite pieces. And then, they're all pretty, but it just seems like sometimes some of the paper just gets pushed to the backs. And so I really wanted to take some that I haven't used and use it today. It's from the Share What You Love DSP. And I'm going to take this away and bring this in. And it's beautiful paper, but I could just never quite figure out what to do with it. It's kind of busy, but it's that beautiful shimmery paper. And I really liked it. So we're going to be using this today for our keepsake memory box. Now I'll go through all the pieces that you need as we pull them up. But the first thing is, if I bring this back in, this really is simple to make. It is a base, so half of a box, if you will. And then this cover is all one piece. And then I just added some matted DSP to it. So pretty simple to do. For the box part, the base, you're going to need a piece of cardstock, and I'm using, again, Whisper White. I just love how crisp it looks against our DSP, and it measures 10 inches by 8 1/4 inches, and we're going to score this on all 4 sides to make our base. This is going to be a reinforced box. The first one that I made, I did not do it as a reinforced box, and it was just so flimsy that you wouldn't want to put anything in there of any weight. So I thought it'd be better to make a reinforced box base. So I'll bring in my Simply Score tool, and it's pretty simple. We're going to score it at 1 inches and 2 inches on all 4 sides. So easy measurements to remember. So I'll just go ahead and get the scoring out of the way. I hope you guys are having a good weekend. It finally quit raining around here. I swan, we have had so much rain this year that the ground is just totally saturated. Poor guys who take care of our lawn have a hard time in the back sometimes because it is just so wet. Okay, so I scored it at 1 inches and 2 inches all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and fold and burnish all of those score lines. Some people like to do their folding and burnishing before they make their cuts, as do I. Other people like to cut first and then fold and burnish. It really doesn't matter. I've done it both ways and haven't seen a big difference. Hi, Julie. Oh my gosh, so glad to have you on. Glad you got your coffee and your bacon, lettuce, tomato. You're ready to go. Julie and I were chatting on a post earlier, and Julie said she could really use the rain. And Julie, I would love to send it to you. I really would. Okay, so I've got everything folded and burnished. Now we need to do some cutting. So you'll notice we have a long side, we have a short side. Does it really matter when it comes to making our flaps? Well, I like to kind of cut to where my flaps are going to fold in from the long side, because this is going to catch it, the short side, when we fold it over. So it's a little bit stronger there. You'll notice we have a rectangle here, and I'm going to cut that rectangle completely away. And I'm trying to cut out the score line as I do that to save on a little bit of bulk. And then we have another rectangle here. We're going to cut all the way up, but we're not going to remove the whole thing. We're just going to remove that bottom square. So this ends up being our flap. We're going to do the same thing on all four sides. I debated whether I should go ahead and get this part ready to save a little bit of time, but I sometimes have people join who have never made a box before. And so I like to go ahead and make it from start to finish for them. All right, so that's what it looks like. The other thing I'm going to do, yep, you guessed it, I'm going to wedge my flaps. And that way I know they will tuck securely underneath my reinforced fold and won't want to pop out. All right, so we've got that side done. We're going to turn it 180 degrees and we'll repeat on this side. So again, I'm just cutting up this first rectangle, trying to take out that score line, and then cutting up the second one. But this time I'm only going to remove the bottom square, just like that, and then wedge. You don't have to take a lot out when you're wedging, but just enough to take out some bulk. And I didn't catch all of my score line there, so I'm going to cut just inside that score line and save myself the bulk. Won't make a difference when we're putting the box together as far as, is it a little bit narrower? Okay, one more to do, and then we'll be ready to assemble. I'm going to cut up both of these, take out that outside corner rectangle, and then just cut up that square and wedge. And there we go. That's all there is. That's all the folding and cutting that we need to do. So let me get rid of my trash here. Now we're ready to put our box together. I told you it's going to be a reinforced box. Hi, Tricia. Oh my gosh, I haven't talked to you in forever. So glad you could join. All right, so here's what we're going to do. This is going to fold in like this and like this, and that is what's going to reinforce our sides. And for that, you can use tear and tape. I'm going to use, I've got loads of fast fuse left over, so I'm just going to use my fast fuse to do this. You do want a strong adhesive. Could you use Tombow? Absolutely, you could. It would just take a little longer. So there's my sides. Now, to catch my flaps, normally we would put tape here. We're not going to have to do that though, because, oh guys, and when you notice, I did that wrong. Let me lift this side up. You want this to go over your flaps. So yeah, everybody does that every once in a while. See if I can get my fast fuse up without, because what we want is for that to actually get caught, and I think I can still do it. It gets caught right in that fold over. like that. Okay, and then when we fold it, that's what then makes our sides of our box also be reinforced. So don't do what I do, do what I say. And this is just going to give me fits, but that's okay. If I'm careful, I can get this up. I only need to bring the sides up. There we go. So what we want is for that to come up and fold in like so. Come here, you. I'm just going to take the whole thing up. Good thing we can still use our fast fuse. This is what I wanted to do. So it comes up and it folds over just like that. All right. So let me put a little more fast fuse on here. And we will continue on our way. So the flaps come in. This comes up over the top of the flap and folds down. There we go. So it's just like that. Okay, now let me see if I can lift this side up, and we'll do that. So you want to actually glue down your short side flaps first, and then go ahead and put your long sides, because that's what will catch your flap. Good thing I didn't use my multi-purpose liquid glue. There's no way I would get this up. But just a little bit of patience. I also could use my heat gun to do this. I think I'm going to put a little tear and tape down on here to loosen up that adhesive. But there, I've shown you a little tip on, if you make a boo-boo like I did, how to go in and fix it. Okay. Get this like this. Fold in the flaps. And I can fold those in afterwards. Fold in my flaps and bring this over. Actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and fold these in now. So short side should get folded in first. And then your long side comes up over the flaps. And just make sure you've got them tucked in nicely so they're square. And there's the base of our box. Easy breezy. All right. So that's the base. Now we need to do the cover. What comes up over this to make that little lid. And for this, you'll need a piece of cardstock that's 10.5 inches by 6 inches. And we have an inch spine on our box here. So we're going to make sure we have centered an inch area where it will fold over. So we're going to score this at 4 3/4 and 5 3/4. Bring back in my scoreboard here. And we'll score it at 4 3/4. And at 5 3/4. And that's all the scoring we have to do for this piece. And then I'll go ahead and fold this over like this. And then fold that. And that will give us just enough of a spine area to where we can take the base of our box, slip it in, and it will sit just like that. And you know what, guys? My box is a little too big. So I'm thinking I actually might need to recut this top piece to be a little bit more than, what did I have? 10.5 by 6. Let's see what this measures. This one might be a little bit bigger than 6 inches. I played around with it last night. So let's see what we have here. And yep, that is right at 6 inches. So you'll actually want to cut this piece to be a bit more than 6 inches wide. I would do it probably, you want a little bit at the top and bottom. So I would cut that to be probably, oh, let's see, 6.5, because that way it gives you that nice little area like we have in here. And that's actually 1/4 of an inch on each side, I'm guessing. So I'm thinking this piece actually needs to be 6 1/4. So hang on a second, let me grab some paper and we're going to recut that paper here. And we'll just recut this to be 6.5 by, what did we say? 10.5. So right there. Okay, now that we've got that right, let's bring it in and rescore. And since we didn't change our measurement in the 10.5, we're still going to score it in the same places, which is 4 3/4 and 5 3/4. So there's our 4 3/4 and there's our 5 3/4. Now I'll bet you this one is going to work. So let's just fold and burnish. And now let's bring our base back in. That's perfect. Okay, so now as you can see, I have just enough at the top and bottom to where it's going to be a nice closure. To attach this, because we do want to attach this, I started with putting my tear and tape along the spine and attaching it to the spine first before I tried to attach it to the bottom. I was able to line it up a lot easier that way. So we're going to do the same thing. Let me cut off that piece there, because we want, here you want it to stick really well. Make sure I have the prettiest side going outside. So we'll put 2 pieces, should be enough. You don't have to go to the very, very end, so you don't need to measure this. Just kind of slap it down here. Get it on there straight. And let's just kind of give it a little burnish. Peel this off and we can attach it. So you can make a bunch of these if you're doing, like you want to do some for Christmas or a party. You could make a bunch of them ahead of time and leave the decorating to last. So I'm just going to line this up, and actually the easiest way to do it, I don't have tape on the bottom, I'm just going to put it at the very bottom, and that way I can line it up with the spine, making sure that the area here pretty much matches the area down here. And now I can just bring my spine up and press it down. To me, that was the easiest way to make sure it all lined up. Now I can go ahead and put some tear and tape on the bottom and attach it at the bottom. And 3 pieces I found was ample, unless you think you're going to put anything kind of heavier in it. If you are, the more tear and tape you use, the better off, the stronger it's going to be. But I'm going to use mine just to store some little gift cards that I made for people that I was able to cut down, so they're a little bit smaller than an A2 size. Come on, let go my ego. That tear and tape wants to stick to everything but what I want it to. Okay, Now we'll be able to very easily attach this to the bottom so it doesn't pop up like that. So there's 1, 2, oops, get down there. And 3. And now, because I've already got it lined up on the spine, I know it's straight, I can just lay down that part, and there is our base to our memory box. Easy breezy. Now for the fun part, decorating. On the one I made previously, you'll notice I used quite a bit of cardstock and DSP. So I have a matted piece of DSP on the front. I have one on the back as well to look pretty. Also did the spine, but you'll notice I have it on the inside as well. The first one I made, I didn't do that, but let me just show you something. This is very flimsy. You can just really push it in. Even when I had the one matted DSP piece on top, it still felt a little flimsy. So I just thought, you know, I want the inside to be pretty too. So I just carried over the matted DSP to the inside as well. So it is a little greedy when it comes to the DSP, but it really adds to the strength of the box. So I've got 3 pieces of cardstock, coordinating cardstock that are cut at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. 3 pieces of DSP that are cut at 4 by 5 1/4. And then I have a piece for the spine of the cardstock, which is 1 3/16 by 5 1/2. And the DSP is 3/4 by 5 1/4. So let's just go ahead and put these together real quick. For this, I just used my Tombow. You guys know I like my Tombow. I don't always have a steady hand, so it helps me being able to wiggle it around a bit. So this part, actually cutting all the pieces out, took me longer than the actual decoration. But this will be fun to do. If you get pieces cut out, you can sit in front of the TV or sit out on the patio when it's a pretty day and not raining. And you can put these together very quickly. All right, one more piece here. The other reason I put the DSP and the cardstock on the inside was I need to attach my ribbon. This closes with ribbon. So if you put your ribbon here, it's going to show. And having the DSP there was a way that I could go ahead and hide that ribbon. And for ribbon, I had a couple of choices and I wasn't sure which one I wanted to use. So I brought them both out. We could use this pretty copper, and I like the copper because the sentiment panel, and let me just bring that out for you. The sentiment panel I made, I used copper embossing powder. So I thought that would be very, very pretty. But we also have the metallic ribbon. Now this is in petal pink, but you guys, I mean, look at that. That is such a good match to this DSP that I could use that as well. And I'm going to cut a length of this and just hold it up and see which one I like better, because I love the copper, but the bows you tie with them, sometimes they're just kind of flat and not as pretty as when you can fluff out actual fabric. And that is the other thing I like about this ribbon, is that it's textured weave, so it gives it even a little more body than the regular ribbon. So let me just see if I get this plastic off. There we go. And I cut roughly 7 inches, I think, just to make sure I had plenty to where I could tie a bow. So let's see how this looks. You guys tell me, do you like the copper or do you like the metallic? I mean, they're both really, really pretty. And hence, you can see why I was having such a hard time with being able to choose it. Hi, Amy. Hi, Chris. Thanks, ladies, for joining. Yeah, Julie, it really is a nice heavy DSP. You're right. It did give strength to my box. All right. So anybody have any druthers as to which of these? You know what? I like the fact that the copper gives it some more depth of color, but I think I'm going to go with this. It's just such a pretty ribbon. So I'll go ahead and cut a couple of lengths. Just going to use my copper one here as my guide. So you'll need 2 pieces. I'll save that copper for another project. All right, then we can put that away, put my Tombow away for the moment. And here's how you attach the ribbon. Now you can measure exactly what halfway is. I just kind of eyeballed it. And I really should have probably stuck this down before. Oh, I'll be able to slip it in there. Because you do want it peeking out from underneath. So let me take, and I think I'll use some fast fuse for this. Find out roughly where my halfway point is. Glue dots would work as well. Let's see if I can just slide that up under there so I tuck it in. There we go. So that's our first piece. And I'm going to repeat on this side. Roughly find my halfway mark. And you don't need a lot of fast fuse. Like I said, a glue dot would work as well. Just want to make sure you get it far enough in there to where that DSP is going to hide it. Okay, now let's have some fun decorating. I'm going to go ahead and bring my Tombow back. And this piece is going to go on the inside. Just like that, and I'm going to press it down to make sure that it adheres well and that it's straight. And you can see already that's giving a lot of strength to my box. Take another piece for the top. This also helped. I put the inside on first because it gives just enough strength to where now I can press down and make sure that I'm getting a good grip between the cover and my matted DSP. And then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to do the spine next. And the reason I did the spine next rather than the bottom, I need to try and line these up. And I just found it much easier to do by putting my spine on next. And for the spine, my cuts are, what did I do for the spine? 4 3/4. Whoop, wait a minute. I'm sorry. It's the cardstock is 3/4, a little over 3/4 by 5 1/2. And the DSP piece is a little over 1/2 by 5 1/4. I say a little over. I didn't like the 3/4 and the 1/2. It left too much white, I thought, on my spine. So I just went like, I would say 1/8 of an inch bigger. So I'll marry these up. now I can attach this to the spine. And here I'm generous with my glue without being gloppy, because it may get a little wear and tear. So I want to make sure that it adheres well. All right, and I've got that lined up pretty good. Now I can turn it over and do my last piece on the back. Since I've got that spine put to where it matches up with the front, I can use that as a guide for putting my back piece on. Now you certainly could make your mats and your cardstock a little bit larger than what I have. But like I say, I really did enjoy the white. I just love how crisp it looks. Okay, so we are almost done with this. I cut an extra piece of the Grapefruit Grove cardstock so that I could just slip it inside my box. I thought it added a nice little touch. And I may have to trim just an itty bitty bit off of that, but as you can see, it just kind of finishes off the bottom. All that's left to do is to put my sentiment panel on and to put a few little embellishments. I went ahead and heat embossed that floral frame from the Floral Frames stamp set. This is quickly becoming one of my go-to stamp sets for sentiments, not only because of the sentiments themselves, but those beautiful frames. They're just perfect. So I heat embossed it with copper embossing powder. I colored in the flowers using, I haven't gotten my Grapefruit Grove yet blend, so I used Calypso Coral Light and Dark and a little bit of Old Olive as well. And I'm going to go ahead and back it on Old Olive. Now, Linda, you say you've used Grapefruit Grove for everything else. Why aren't you matting it in Grapefruit Grove? I wanted a little bit additional green in there. I really like the way it pops up, that sentiment panel, giving it good definition. So I thought the Old Olive would be a good choice. I'm just going to go ahead and attach this with some Tombow to the mat. And I stamped the sentiment, which is from Wonderful Moments. That's another great stamp set. And I thought it was great because you could use it for a birthday. You could use it for an anniversary. You could use it for birth of a baby, just a wedding. It just worked for several different occasions. So I'll be able to grab this box for more than just one occasion. And I am going to pop this up on dimensionals. So I'll put a couple in each corner and one in the middle to keep it from bowing. And figure out my exact placement here. I just very gently lay it down, pick it up, and that way I can make any last minute adjustments before it really grabs onto it. And I bet you think we're done, but no, we're not quite done. I wanted to, because you can store this standing up, I thought how pretty would it be to do something with the spine as well. So what I did was I took and I colored in some of our basic pearl jewels, and I colored them in with the light Calypso Coral, believe it or not. And I'm going to go ahead and put 3 of them on the spine. So I put the center one down first to give me kind of a go-to balance area for how far apart I need my other 2 to be. Just like that. And I think it just gives it a nice little finishing touch. So you can fill this with whatever you like and then simply tie a bow. Of course, there's no such thing as simply tying a bow with me, but I'll give it a shot on camera. And then you can trim your tails down if you need to. I tend to leave mine long. I just like the look of it. Oh, guess what? I did not attach this down strong enough. So didn't press it down. Gotta press it down. Okay, now let's put it together. And you certainly could add even more embellishments depending on what DSP you're using, what sentiment panel you create. I certainly could add leaves or flowers to this, and that would dress it up even more. But there we go. So there is a beautiful little keepsake box that is strong enough you can actually store things in, doesn't take up a lot of room, and works for so many different occasions. Does anyone have any questions? Hi, Jean. Thanks for joining. You can always go back and watch the replay. Yep, Julie, I agree with you. More Grapefruit Grove. I just don't think, I didn't like it. I tried it, didn't like it. I also, since I stamped the sentiment in Mossy Meadow, I tried the Mossy Meadow, but it was a little too dark. So the Old Olive is an in-between green that I think works very well with it. All right, well, I hope you guys will give this one a try. As you can see, it was pretty easy to put together, even though I botched up the base. It was pretty easy to fix that. And you can go ahead and if you make your base first, because you know sometimes when you're cutting your flaps and putting things together, if you were off even a little bit with your cardstock cut like I was, it can make a big difference. So before you cut your cover, make your base first. That way you can get a good measurement and know exactly how wide you need for it to be. And that will also help you with making sure that your DSP and your cardstock cuts are the way you want them. I really do like all the white around this though. I just really think that that sets off that DSP. So go through your DSP that you maybe have some pieces you're not quite sure what to do with. Here's the perfect project for that. And that way, maybe our stashes will go down a little bit. Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining. I hope that you have a great rest of the weekend and join us on Tuesday night. We're going to get back to card making on Tuesday nights and save our 3D projects for Saturdays. If you have any suggestions of a project you would like to see or a card technique that you would like me to demonstrate, just drop me a note in the comments. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye now.